Recording going. All right. So let me get started. I did start the recording, so I like that reminder there. And here are our sponsors, so don't want to forget them. And welcome to Submerged Librarians. I'm Denise Garofalo. I'm a librarian at Mount St. Mary College in Newburgh, New York. I'm ostensibly the Systems and Tech Services librarian, but we're a small college, so I do a lot of different things. And what I plan to give you today is a little background on my college, our information literacy pre-pandemic, information literacy instruction pre-pandemic, and how we developed an embedded librarian pilot that became a program to respond to the needs of our college during the pandemic. I'll be touching on where we hope to go with this effort in the future. So, on to the background. Mount St. Mary College is a small liberal arts college in the United States, located on the banks of the Hudson River in New York State, about halfway between Albany and New York City. We have 3 graduate programs, as you can see here. Librarians have faculty status and go through the tenure process. We feel we're lucky because our classroom faculty has a history of supporting information literacy instruction, so we don't have to fight that battle. The college's first-year experience program integrates librarians and information literacy instruction, and we collaborate with faculty in first-year experience and with personal librarians, as well as via our liaison program. And I should have mentioned the format for today will be that I'm going to talk, and then at the end, there'll be time for questions. So if you have questions, please, you can type them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Sorry, I forgot that at the beginning. All right, so pre-COVID, information literacy instruction had 2 main fronts at the college. We had the personal librarians that were in our first-year experience program, and that allowed us to provide consistent foundational information literacy instruction to all first-year students through the learning communities. And the way we handle your learning communities is it's a pair of linked general ed classes, general education, such as anatomy and physiology and college writing, or introduction to psychology and computer literacy. And the librarian works with the faculty from both classes in planning information literacy instruction that's tied to the needs of the classes. For other courses, we had, the traditional one-shot sessions where we're invited to a class to provide a single information literacy instruction session to support a research assignment. And we had limited opportunities to, except for FYE, to provide more in-depth instruction. And then pandemic. So when COVID hit last year, we all had to act without planning. The college closed in-person instruction for 2 weeks initially, and all classes went virtual. They remained online throughout the remainder of the spring semester. Our learning management system, we use Moodle and call it eClass. It had Big Blue Button integrated into it, but before COVID hit, few faculty were actually using that capability of video conferencing and such. They were more familiar with Zoom from doing conferences and webinars and such. So during that first few weeks, campus IT was scrambling to get Zoom for everybody. And we were scrambling at the library as well. We were working to provide research support and instruction virtually. We didn't have chat reference, so getting the library email distributed to all library staff was a task that we had to do. It was a way of trying to provide support as far as information literacy instruction goes. Fortunately, most of our instruction happens early in the semester, so by the time COVID hit and we went remote, we had done the vast majority of instruction already face-to-face. But we did have to create some tutorials and work out how to handle those few instruction sessions that we needed to do when we went remote. So once the spring semester was done, the college started planning for fall of 2020, and they centered on wanting to do things better. The confusion over Big Blue Button and Zoom, they resolved that. They selected Zoom for online instruction. The college decided on a hybrid online and face-to-face teaching environment, what they were calling a high flex instruction model. With a mix of online and face-to-face instruction, faculty was told to prepare to pivot to online on short notice if needed in the fall, and to design their courses appropriately. And all faculty had to take a course in online teaching. So the library debriefed as well, and we needed to prepare for planning for fall too. The librarians took the course in online teaching. We thought that that would make us be on an even keel with the classroom faculty. We revised online tutorials. We created new ones. We worked with our Office of Digital Learning and Instructional Design Services and discussed how best we could support the students and faculty in a hybrid online and face-to-face teaching environment. We wanted to tap their expertise. And after those discussions, it seemed an easy decision to develop a pilot for embedded librarians. We fine-tuned what services we wanted to highlight in our learning management system for an embedded pilot. Then we sent an email message out to all the faculty on campus, both our full-time teaching faculty and our adjuncts, about this new service that we would have a librarian embedded in their online course. So faculty signed up for this opportunity and to have the librarian embedded. And then the librarians reached out to those faculty, mostly based along the lines of our liaison areas. So, you know, if you were the liaison to business, then you would reach out to the faculty that were coming from the School of Business and so on. And then working with the faculty, collaboratively developed lessons, learning activities, and resources to support the courses. And then, of course, in addition to the pilot, we'd continue to provide those one-shot information literacy instruction sessions for the non-embedded classes. And we would be available via multiple means, email, Slack, the learning management system, and Zoom. So our pilot started. And we had a pretty broad representation across the campus disciplines, as you can see here in this chart. The two areas that you see with these, the most embedded pilot courses, nursing and social sciences, actually kind of support the more active liaison areas. The librarians, I'm the nursing librarian. One of my colleagues is social sciences. We've worked really hard on our liaison areas, and that's why we feel we had the higher numbers in those two areas. But all the disciplines were represented with at least one course, and we were really happy to see that as far as a pilot, because we thought by that kind of broad representation, we'd have better data on how this was going to work. So we get through the fall semester, and we surveyed the faculty that were involved in the pilot about their experience. We wanted to use this data in planning how to proceed for the spring 2021 semester. So as you can see, we had a pretty high response rate for the survey. And these were some of the broad comments on the embedded library program here. Overall, the faculty involved were positive about the pilot and the support and services the librarians provided, which we were very happy with all of this data that we got from the survey from the pilot. We learned from this question's responses that some of the faculty were not aware that the librarians had tutorials that were available, or that we could create them if what we had didn't meet their needs. So one thing that we learned from the pilot was that we would have to stress this aspect with the faculty in the spring. Then the curated resources were very well received. These ranged from links to streaming films and ebooks that were in the library collection, to podcasts, webinars, and more that the librarian would search, research, and locate on the web, and then place the information into the learning management system. We were happy to see that the information literacy instruction was a hit. So it was very positive. And what pleased us the most was this data right here, that every faculty member who was involved and responded to the survey wanted an embedded librarian in their courses in the future. We asked the participants for general feedback, and a selection is displayed here. We reviewed this feedback as we discussed how best to proceed in spring 2021. So from pilot to program now. So with the HighFlex model still in place on campus, we decided to make it from a pilot to a program to build on what we did in the fall and what we learned then and try to improve. At this point, we're down to 3 librarians due to budget cuts and freezes, but we felt that the embedded librarian effort would allow us to provide the information literacy instruction and support services in a more efficient way, since we could prepare during the winter break to create the tutorials and look for resources to curate. Faculty reached out to collaborate on instruction. We sent an email again out to the entire campus. Some of the librarians, some of the faculty that had been involved in the fall emailed us and said, we want you in our spring courses, which it made us feel really good to have that outreach. As far as the faculty, a senior level nursing class, the faculty wanted what they were calling a letter to the editor activity, where the students would find an article in a nursing journal to write about, then find a second article to support their position on the first, and they'd have to do this in APA citation style. So I, as that librarian, developed resources to support the students in completing this assignment, met with the students to answer their questions, discussed with the faculty member, how this activity was going to develop, and we're revising it for the fall now. What was funny with this was the idea that they had to write something that was just 150 words long, seemed to cause them the most concern. My colleague with business, there was a course that required students to search for a case study, and the librarian worked with the faculty there to curate the resources to support their assignment. So these are a couple of examples of the kind of collaboration that we were able to do that we really hadn't had an opportunity to do with our faculty before. We created instructional activities and assessments with other courses. We kept up our one-shot instruction sessions, maintained our multiple means of contact from the fall, and we even started a LibGuide with some of the information about our program. When we reached out to the faculty that were involved in the spring 2021 program, we compared their responses to those from the fall. Now, we see the slight drop in satisfaction and attribute that to the fact that we were down a librarian, but we're happy that even though they're a little less satisfied than they were in the fall, that overall faculty is still satisfied with the program. And they want to continue to have embedded librarians in their courses. Another positive that we're very pleased about. In some of the courses, I had mentioned that we were curating resources, and we made video tutorials as well, all to support the curriculum. In the courses where these were provided, as you can see, the majority of faculty who responded agreed or strongly agreed the videos were relevant to course content and that the library materials supported the course curriculum. So it was really exciting to have what we were seeing and feeling as we were a part of the pilot in last semester's program, that it wasn't just our thinking that we were doing a good job, that it seemed to meet a need of the faculty too. So now what are we going to do? Well, for the future, we want to continue the program and attempt to expand it beyond the faculty who are already participating. We know we have tutorials to revise and we want to incorporate more assessment. But one of the things that it became apparent that where they placed our embeddedness in the learning management system actually became a factor. So number one is what we call a tabbed layout that many of the faculty use, but there's nothing there that's specifically librarian. Number two, the faculty members will have some sort of dividers amongst the content, and they'll put us in the introduction section, as you can see from that screenshot. And number three, it's just a whole scrolling down forever and ever of everything that's a part of the course, and you can get kind of lost in there. And number four is what we're calling the librarian tab, and that's really what we think is easiest. It's if we can have that consistency across all the courses. So that's something that we're proposing as we work with online learning and the faculty. This is where we like it, because the standard will mean that the students across the courses will know where to look for the librarian. And then it's easy as you have to add content based on either what's happening in the course or what you're learning from the students. So this seemed to work the best for us. So wish us luck in getting this proposed as a standard. As far as other future things, we of course want to continue this. We want to expand the involvement beyond the current participating faculty, because again, at the end of the spring semester, we were heartened that many of the faculty reached out to us and said, I want you in our courses in the fall. Whether or not we're teaching face-to-face or online, they'll have a presence in our learning management system and they want us there. We are going to revise some tutorials based on faculty feedback. We want to incorporate more assessment, and of course, we'll continue our non-embedded information literacy instruction in person or Zoom. We think that the way things are going, that we're going to be all in person in the fall, but we'll be ready to pivot no matter what happens there. So these are, again, some things that we would change. Some of the faculty, again, based on the fact that they hold the library and the resources we have and the librarian's expertise in such high regard, they want the students to meet with us. And so they require appointments with librarians, but these aren't tied to any specific learning outcomes in some cases. And besides a time factor, there was some student pushback, like, why am I required to meet with you when I don't really have an assignment that needs library resources? So we're in discussions to work with our faculty that we're doing this and see if we can get them to either ease off or tie it to a particular outcome. We also want to work on the timing of instruction. Again, because they want to have, the faculty wants us there on the first day because they want the students to know all about the library and what the services the librarians can provide, which is wonderful that they place us in such high regard, but it's really an orientation. So we're working on proposing a flipped classroom idea where we have an orientation video the students would watch with some sort of short quiz, and then we would come in and do our instruction that's more tied to the assignments. When they're discussing the assignment, we can come in and then do our information literacy instruction. So those are two of the main things that we're trying to work on to improve for the fall. So I gave you the background of the college and our information literacy instruction, talked about the evolution of the pilot and how it evolved into a program, and it will continue to be a program moving forward. We're so pleased about the positive faculty response to what we've done, and we're planning to improve on that. We just want to grow the program and improve it. So there's my time. So we have plenty of time for questions. So,
All right, it looks like we have some questions.
yay!
Okay, wonderful. So the first one I see is from Lucy Bellamy. Does MSMC follow quarter or semester periods?
Oh, that's a good question. We have a traditional fall and spring semester. We also have a summer session. We have something that they were calling accelerated for some of the non-traditional students, but during the pandemic, they kind of didn't do that session. They've kept to the traditional fall and spring, and I think they're getting rid of the accelerated moving forward. But yeah, it's just a 2 semesters.
The next question I see is from Rebecca Brett. What strategies are you planning on using to increase faculty participation?
Oh, good question. Well, we're going to lean very heavily into relationships that we have, and the liaison program has helped with that. But because there's really right now just 2 of us, we hope to be hiring a third librarian to start in the fall. This may not be a good year for us in trying to grow it because of the lack of manpower, but we're hoping to just rely on those individual relationships that the 2 of us have established, that our library director has with some, so she's going to help us there. We'll talk about it at the first faculty meeting. I know it's a little too late then in the fall, but we figure if we can just keep that idea out in front of the faculty, and if we can continue to have such great positive response from those that are participating, we can turn to them to help maybe nudge their colleagues to get on our bandwagon. Hope that answers your question.
Our next question is from Vinaya Tivaranini. What is your librarian to student ratio?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, right now, see, we have an FTE of about, what did they tell us? About 1,800, and there's 2 librarians. So it'd be 900 students per librarian right now.
Next question is from Daniel. Did you see an increase in student questions / interactions from the course that had embedded librarians?
Well, yes, good question. We did. And they would reach out to us. I was surprised when a couple of the faculty wanted us on Slack. I didn't know if we'd actually have response from students, but students would ask questions to the Slack platform. They didn't use the message service that was built into the learning management system, but they would email us, and we had appointment links in the embedded classes as well. So they use those a lot in setting up, they set up an appointment. It was all via Zoom, but lots of times it was just a question or 2. It really wasn't like a in-depth research appointment, but they just had a question like, how to find the full text article for something they found in a database, something really specific and short. So, they reached out in a variety of ways, but mostly it was email and the appointments.
The next question is from Laura Richmond. Did you primarily use email to market this program to faculty?
Yes, we did. It was basically 2 emails that the library director sent last summer, a couple of weeks before. Well, no, first one was a month before classes started, and then the second one was a couple of weeks before classes started. And then in the fall, around the middle of November, she sent out a similar email to all of the faculty, both full-time and our adjuncts, telling them this opportunity was going to continue in the spring and did they want to participate. So it was just email.
We have another question from Vinaya. Our librarians are concerned about workload if we start this program. Any concerns from your librarians?
Oh, there was last summer when we were told you're going to take the online teaching course this summer, and you're going to develop all these tutorials, and you're going to, do whatever you need to support it. We were worried about the workload, but although I think if I took off the online teaching course off the plate, because that was a pretty substantial time sink, being able to spread the creation of those tutorials out over the summer, because we did them in advance. We had an idea of what we needed from working in the campus and working with some of these teachers. So we knew what they were going to ask. During the semester, the thing that was the big workload was those required research appointments with the students, to be honest. If I took them out of the consideration, I did probably less work with the embedded programs outside of those appointments than I did with the other instruction that I usually do. And it felt more focused and more applicable. And it seemed better than those one shots where you come in the first week of class and you're trying to show them, like, here's the databases and here's what you search. I hope that answers your question.
Our next question is from Darlita Ballard. Would you set up classes by appointment and rotate your librarians to teach the information literacy classes?
Well, because we're kind of set with the liaison areas, there's not a rotation for it. In the past, when one person has gotten more overwhelmed than the others with instruction requests, they'll divvy up those sessions amongst the other librarians. But for this, we pretty well kept to our subject areas and didn't really venture outside of that. So it was the social science librarian and myself as the nursing person. We did have the heavier load, but the other librarian had a wider variety of content. So it worked out for us. I hadn't thought about that, divvying it up. It's something we may end up having to do, given that we're still kind of short-staffed.
Next question is from Holly Hertel. Were instructors good at doing the embedding of the librarian?
Oh, good question. No. We had some help with the pilot with our online learning office, and we knew what we needed to do, but we weren't able to as the person who kind of owned the class on our learning management system. So we ended up having to tell them, and then fortunately online learning developed a short tutorial, which we now point the faculty to, so that when they say, well, I don't know how to do that, it's like, okay, all you have to do is make me a teacher with editing permits, and I'm going to send you the link so you can follow the instructions to do that. But in some cases, I think if we had been able to do it, the faculty members would have wanted us to take that on.
The next question is from Al. Are you a faculty librarian? Do you teach besides teaching InfoLit?
At our college, the librarians have faculty status. We only teach information literacy. We don't teach courses in other disciplines.
We have time for one more question. This is from Patty McGowan. What are your recommendations for working with faculty? Specifically, our orientations are mostly one-shot, but we want to move toward more frequent, more assignment-related, and are sort of tied into the faculty's time to fit the library in.
Yeah, that's a hard situation. I would say, we were able to take our first year experience and add a personal librarian component to that. And that really helped in getting us more involved with more in-depth instruction. So if you have some sort of first year experience, maybe there's some way you can toggle onto it and get a librarian facet to that. I mean, I can only speak from our experience and what worked for us. But that's one thing I can think of.
Right. It looks like we are at time. So thank you everybody for attending this session. Please don't forget to fill out the evaluation before you end the day if you're continuing with the other sessions. And thank you very much, Denise, for lending us your expertise today.
My pleasure. Thank you all for coming. I hope you learned something and you enjoy the rest of the conference.
And then do you want to stop recording?
Thank you. I knew there was something I needed to do. I was looking at my notes.